Welcome to No More Illusions, the show that helps you see clearly so you can soar. Today, I'm really excited to share with you, we have a fascinating guest, Kinga. She is, and she'll introduce more about herself as we get into it, but she is a self-made woman, a Polish immigrant who came to the UK when she was younger, the first in her family to go to university, and unfortunately, like myself, also a lawyer. But we will share a little bit more about her journey through her illusion. As we get situated, though, I just want everyone to know a little bit about where she is because this is virtual. So, Kinga, where are you in the world right now, and what do you see when you look around you?
Hello, thank you for having me on, firstly.
Sure.
I am in Canterbury, which is in the southeast of the UK. So about 45 minutes away from London on the high-speed train.
Hmm.
And when I look around, not around my office, but generally,
Hmm.
there's a lot of greenery actually, and a lot of heritage. And you can see um, the Roman history
Hmm.
as you venture through the town, and it's very green. It's called the Garden of England, for a reason, I suppose. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. I know a lot of folks in the UK take their gardening very seriously. I have a coworker who's out of the UK, a little bit more towards Cambridge, and he shows us pictures of his garden, and it just puts my backyard to shame. I'm like, never show those pictures to my wife.
I'm sure she would happily welcome him at your home so you can do some gardening
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
It's
her
it's
or
it's
with us.
amazing. All right. Well, let's get started with your illusion. And it's one that definitely resonates with me, and I'd love to hear how you came about it. So the illusion was if I just work incredibly hard, even for free, my effort will eventually speak for itself, and people will naturally recognize my values. So tell us a little bit more about your experience and how you came to see that this was an illusion.
Okay. Oh gosh, this is like in a way, a culmination of about 8 years of personal development.
Wow.
Ever since I suppose, since I've went to university, decided to go to university and make it big, and not work in a factory or a retail floor like so many people that I have grown up with have ended up doing. I mean, my own parents work in factories as just regular people,
Mhm.
very easily replaceable. So the prospect of just not doing that and not ending up in that same place was, I suppose, exciting and scary at the same time. So the goal was simply to get out from where I was. And the only way I knew how to do that was through just applying myself and working hard and hoping at first that will pay off. However, as I think as you venture through the world and slowly give so much of yourself and not see much return to you, you start to question things. And that's what I did. I was like, hey, why am I working so hard doing all of these things that so many people can't do or are not going to do as well? But all of these people that I'm doing this for don't see that. Surely there's something wrong. Like, surely that's not all life has to offer me, and there's a different way. So I've kind of started to give myself permission to do things as I went on this personal development journey. And only good things came from giving myself that permission. So now we're essentially here, and I get to work with fantastic people who also want to be known for something in their space and help them build that same authority using all of these other things than just hard work. Because I think at the end of the day, most of us would say that we work hard, right? Especially when you're doing things that you really love doing. You apply yourself, but that's not enough. So I really want people to understand that just by doing that doesn't mean that their life is going to be transformed or someone will notice, because everyone's a little bit too busy in their own life to even stop and consider that and maybe come to that realization. And you've got to show it to them and almost hand it on a plate in different ways.
Yeah, I'm curious, where do you believe this illusion originated for you in your mind, right? Because, we adopt beliefs or we hear
Yes.
something. Just curious, did you unpack that as you went through this personal
I
self-improvement
did.
journey?
So it's very much tied to how I was raised by my parents, I suppose. So I mean, that in the era that my parents had me, it was very much expected for women to carry out a certain function and be there for everybody, put themselves aside and do stuff. When you add the additional layer of us being immigrants and then coming to the UK with no language skills, like whatsoever, I was 11 at that time. They came with no language also, but as grown adults. So naturally, you're not going to pick up that language as easily.
Hmm.
I was pretty privileged to pick up language pretty fast.
Hmm.
So soon after being in the UK for a tiny while, I was the one that was responsible for ringing places, going to the bank with my parents, sorting out broadband, and all of the adult things that I shouldn't really have to do at the age that I was at. And then because they worked incredibly hard on their goals and just trying to escape poverty, like so many people that did at that time when they emigrated from Poland, my worth inevitably was linked to what I do.
Hmm.
And that's the belief I took with me as I ventured into the world. So, yeah, I suppose it originated with me being raised up to be a people pleaser. Hence the personal development work to entangle all of that and then coming to the conclusions that I have as I've gone through that transformation.
Well, it's a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very tempting illusion because hard work does generate a certain level of results. Certainly, I would rather be hardworking than, not work hard at anything. But I wonder, as you were moving through life and seeing how things go in the world, when did you start to notice that maybe others who weren't working as hard or had other attributes besides hard work were maybe surpassing you or getting things that you thought were not unattainable or weren't able to get just through working hard?
Yeah. Oh, I dare say. So I went to law school and I planned to be a lawyer, but shortly before graduating, I've made the decision to not go into that. So what I've done instead is started freelancing. I don't know why I started freelancing because it would be so much easier just to get a job. But hey ho, it kind of served me in all the right ways in the long run. Um, and where I saw it is just through the people that I was working with, because when I worked for them and I was getting paid whilst doing those things, when I was doing all the kind of marketing bits and bobs for them, they were getting amazing results. And I was like, hey, do I have to be invited or have to be at a certain stage in my career or in my business to be invited to talk on a podcast or appear in the news or go and speak at a local event or go to a networking event and just stand there with confidence and advocate for myself? And actually, as I did more and more kind of marketing stuff to increase someone else's visibility, I've noticed that actually they achieve most of that work because I'm there and I'm cheerleading them on. So, what is stopping me from being my own cheerleader and achieving similar things or better things than they are if I just cheerlead myself on and just go and do these things that you think you need permission for on the visibility front, And I'm not talking about going out into the world and being salesy and going, hey, work with me, I can do your LinkedIn marketing for you when you need it because A, B, C, and D. Not like that, but simply just standing up for yourself and then talking about the things that you're doing so people know who you are known for. And you can't just do that through hard work because, yes, hard work is great and it will get you so far. It won't get you to that next stage. And there's a saying, I mean, different professionals will tell you what got you here is not going to get you there. And this conclusion and this illusion is what allowed me to go, okay, I've made hard work pay off and get me here. but it's not going to take me much further because I'm putting a ceiling on my own growth just by believing hard work is going to do it all.
Well, it's fascinating to me how the work that you were doing for others opened up your mind about what you could accomplish for yourself. That's really kind of, in a good way, ironic and cool.
Yeah,
Um,
it was.
and I want to zero in a little bit. Like as you were talking, this sort of imaginary equation came into my mind: hard work plus blank equals success, right? So would
Yes.
love for you to share a little bit about what went in after that plus, because obviously, I have no doubt you're a hard worker, immigrant children of like first, second generation. We all have that drilled into our brains by our parents.
We
So
do.
whenever I see an immigrant, I'm like, this person 95% of the time has no choice but to work hard because of who their parents are and how they were raised.
Yeah.
But what is that plus? What were the things you saw in addition that you needed to add to fully realize your potential success?
Okay, so there's hard work, then there's simple visibility, and
Mm,
then proximity. So yeah, the on top of hard work, you need to be in proximity to the people that you want to be like, or even if it means you get out the house and go to a networking event that maybe you wouldn't normally go to because you think, oh, I'm a little bit too little for that event, right? And it's the room full of CEOs or whatever. You just have to, do a little prayer and venture forth. And then visibility, because naturally, you can do all the best work, but if no one knows about it, and for many people, that includes their manager, right? Because some people are so good at their job and they just get on with it. No one above them knows what doesn't fall apart because of them, because they don't talk about the things that are falling apart or could have fallen apart if they weren't there. And because they don't talk about it, no one knows about it, right? So, like, why would they see you for something more than you show them?
yeah.
They wouldn't. Yeah.
One
So,
one thing that's resonating so much that you're sharing here about the visibility is, I think, a mistake. And I'm a corporate animal. I've grown up in corporate after graduating from law school. One mistake I've made, and I see a lot of people continuing to make, is this almost passive belief that if you're a hard worker and generating good results, somehow magically your manager will do everything that needs to get done to get your name out into those other rooms that you don't have access to praise you to the higher ups in a way that you get your fair share of opportunities. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But what I came to realize is you can't count on that happening.
no, because I mean, at the end of the day, they have their own career that they're fighting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, unless they have deep amounts of emotional intelligence, which, mind you, is not a natural skill for most people because it's not something that we're taught in school or outside of school, in college or at the beginning of a job, they're not going to know that's what their people are expecting them for. They're only going to do what you ask them to do, right? So you have to have an amazing manager, essentially, that will go out and speak for you and vouch for you and mention your name in rooms that you're in. Or the alternative is you have a normal manager and then you just start to have conversations that enable them to share what you're doing, because at the end of the day, it makes them look better as well. And a lot of people are not good at selling themselves, in quotes, to their higher ups in order for those things to happen. And yeah, that I used to believe this too.
Yeah, one trap I've noticed people can get into with this part of the illusion is that the work that we do is that's in our job description or how we would describe what we do, and we think anything outside of that, like making sure the higher ups know about the work that we do, making sure our manager has the ammunition they need to sort of vouch for us and fight for us, that we don't consider that work. But in a way, if you consider your career as including all of that, that's work you have to add in as well. It's just as important.
Absolutely. I mean, if not more. So at the end of the day, the people that do get that promotion or do end up starting the business, right? It happens because someone there knows about the work that you're doing, can see the results that you're achieving, and can then also share them in the way that's easily replicable without making an idiot or a fool out of themselves in doing so. So it's really like a skill that you have to acquire to then help your career forward. And it's not even bragging at the end of the day, because you're not bragging about anything. It's just you're sharing the work that's being done that maybe is overlooked if you don't talk about it, because nobody knows except for you. And how are they to know, unless they did that same job, but they're not going to know. It's like asking for magic to happen.
Yeah. It's totally magical thinking.
Yes.
So, as part of the plus, you mentioned visibility, and thank you for sharing a little bit more with that. You also mentioned proximity, and I love this concept, and I've had conversations with others around that. Maybe talk to us a little bit about the importance of proximity, what you're near, who you're near, and how that really has a bigger impact than people realize.
Well, there's the common saying, or at least it's common, where in my line of work, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And, is it potentially stretched? Maybe yes, because we're all individuals with our own thoughts and feelings and experiences. But you are shaped by your environment, whether you like it or not. So if you hang around with people who have a similar mindset or have ambitions that are even bigger than yours, you're going to simply pick up stuff from them as you go along, provided you have a growth mindset. You can absolutely be a normal human being with no growth mindset, and all of the nuggets of information will fly over your head. I've seen it happen over and over. People do not know how to spot an opportunity unless they've been taught to spot an opportunity, which, is a natural skill for an immigrant child. You're taught to have that thinking. So yeah, in a way, I have to thank my parents for that. And then once you know how to spot the opportunities, you can use those opportunities. So, so I've got some amazing clients, and so they run multinational companies, and I could just come in, do my work, help them do amazing authority building on LinkedIn and not learn a single thing. Mm-hmm. I could just do my job, leave. But I don't. I recognize that where they are is where I also want to be, not as a parrot, but as my own individual self. But they clearly know something that I don't. Sure. And that's why they're in the place they are in. So I do my very best to learn through that work that they're doing, or their mindset, and replicate that in my own life, as boring or as hard as that work is. And through doing those things and having simple conversations with them and going, hey, when you went from X to Z, what was that like? Because I'm going through A, B, C, and D, right? And then they'll go, oh my gosh, I've been there, done that. I can relate to the struggle that you're in. And they'll naturally just reach out to you and give you their hand if they're solid people. But if you don't have those conversations, they can't do that for you, because why would they? They don't know what's in your mind. So just by being in close proximity to the people that you're in, you can absorb some of that mindset and some of those strategies or some of the ways of thinking that are different to your own, and even absorb that cheerleading effect. So you then are less scared to do the thing that you may wanted to try for years or months or decades, right? And then what is super useful in that scenario, wherever you are, is to just have a mentor, someone who is at the level you are at, so you can learn from each other and bounce off each other. Someone who is way senior than you that you admire. Someone even younger than you, so they can teach you some of the things that are maybe generational, or because of how they've experienced life, they have insights into things that aren't natural to your generation. And then use those things to then build up the proximity to the people that you want to be with. Because at the end of the day, if you have a great relationship with a mentor and they know you really well and they know what you do amazingly, if they're then in a conversation with 5 other people who are just as big as them, and someone goes, oh, do you know anyone who's amazing at X, Y, and Z? They can confidently say, oh, yes, you should be talking to this person because they know exactly what you stand for, and they know that if that recommendation gets made, they're not going to look foolish, and their reputation is not going to get tarnished in the process because they know you so well. Which is
Yeah.
again links back to the same idea of why certain people get a promotion and certain hard workers who just stay down, head down, do the work, don't get promoted. It's because their manager simply doesn't know them. And there's a great book on this written by Dr. Ruth Gotian and Andy Lopata. It's a guide to mentoring written by the Financial Times. And yeah, if I read any book to help me with the proximity element, it would be that one, probably.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, so much advice in there that resonates with me. One thing that you actually unlocked for me, Kinga, as you were sharing your experience is I know a lot of people who are very, let's just call it academically or intellectually smart, right? Like mentally they're powerhouses, right? And I'd say not all of them, or probably if you look at the law of averages, most of them are not like the most successful people. Like I respect them, they're really smart, they're really hardworking, but they are not necessarily at the top of the heap. And there's many reasons, why that happens. One thing that I recognize now as you were sharing with me is a huge barrier is when you're so smart, right? Like when you grow up and you're like the smartest person in the room, your teachers praise
Yeah.
you, your parents praise you, you get your first job, everyone's like, wow, you're so amazing. You start to fall into this sort of illusion that you're some sort of expert and you don't want to seem stupid or ignorant. And you stop asking those questions, those great questions that you ask your clients, like that growth mindset that you were talking about. And that actually stops you from growing. You're too scared to be perceived as anything else but smart or an expert. And it can actually inhibit your growth and success.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The amount of times, I mean, I make an idiot out of myself on a weekly basis. Does that bother me? Absolutely not, because I think it's because like how we were grown up to be or taught how to be, you had to get the perfect grades. If you
Yeah.
got a bad grade, that was bad. You suddenly had to work smarter. So people are inherently too afraid to make mistakes. But if you want to get ahead in life, you have to accept that you're not going to be amazing at everything, and you have to fail, and you have to fail often. And if you do it fast and cheap, that's great. That's what great entrepreneurs do. They're not the smartest people. Usually, they're the average schoolers, academics. But they know that failure doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that that thing failed. And you can try again and try a different method or move on and go, actually, I'm going to find someone who's amazing at that. So I don't have to learn that skill because I can put my time and energy into something completely else. So it's completely different. And I have that mindset about myself. So if, even if it's a word I can't pronounce, I will mispronounce it. That's fine, because the next time I'll pronounce it, I'll know how to say it because I'll remember when I've made an absolute idiot out of myself. And that's fine. And I still get lots of no's. I'll try and connect with someone. I'll just go, no. Does that bother me? Absolutely not. Because I know that at the same time, there's a crowd of people who will openly have me and will relate to me. And that will make the journey more the pleasant.
Yeah. Well, one thing you shared as we were preparing for our chat today is the actions that you started to take when you realized this was an illusion, right? Like people who are listening, they're all good at something, they're high performing in a certain area, but perhaps they're not getting noticed or recognized. What are some of the actions you realized can start to take advantage of realizing this illusion of hard work?
Sharing the work, which I think that tip came through as we had this conversation so far. But that's really undertapped, and I don't mean you have to create this amazing, perfectly polished portfolio of what it is you do. Just simply sharing your work, whether it's a quick email to your manager going, "Hey, we nearly had this massive emergency, but I did X, Y, and Z to stop it. No need to do anything. I'm just letting you know." Or whether it's at the end of the week, you did something and you run your own company or whatever, and you do, here's the things that I've learned this week, or here's a thought that I had this week, or here's this piece of work that I've produced that I'm really proud of, and here's a tip or two how you can replicate that work in your own life. Those little things really do stack up. And if you just keep at it and believe in yourself like you would believe in your friend that's venturing forth in something new, the interest will compound. And I suppose why a lot of people don't do that is because they don't see this immediate result. And no thing worth waiting for is actually worth your time, you know? So you've just have to go slow and steady, not expect anything to happen overnight, but believe that over time all of that will be added up. So a lot of our work, if we're starting work with someone, and let's say they go, I want to be a known authority in my field by, I don't know, next month. I will happily sit them down and go, okay, I know that's your goal, but in a month that's not possible. Like we
Right.
need 6 months or 18 months, depending on what industry they're in, until people actually start to notice that is who you are and what you stand for and what you do and how you're useful for them in their life. Nothing's going to come overnight. And I suppose that's why marketers exist, you know, because they're there cheerleading you on, whilst you don't have any belief in yourself. So sharing your work, absolutely. Applying for awards, that's something else. Like a few years back, I didn't feel like a marketer whatsoever,
Mhm.
but I thought, you know, F this, I'm going to apply for this marketing index and see what happens. And I submitted my application last minute because I was like, if I don't put a lot of emotional effort into this, it's
Mhm.
not going to hurt if I get let down.
Mhm.
So I winged this thing, absolutely winged it. I was like, okay, you know, if nothing happens, that's no problem because I actually didn't put that much effort in, which again, like I want to point out that is a complete strategy that my brain has created for failure to not feel as horrible.
Mhm.
Not that you need it to, you know, do things anyway. But I've applied for that and actually ended up on this index. And I was like, you know, whilst I
Wow.
don't feel great about myself, somebody out there goes, she's in the top 100. You know, people need to listen to her if they want to know marketing because she's an influential voice. I didn't feel like an influential voice at that time. I still don't most of the time. If someone introduces me as this, you know, Forbes mentioned best award-winning businesswoman, I'm like, oh, that's not me. And cringe from within, but that still doesn't stop that other people can see you in that way, and other people's perception of you is as important, or actually more important, than your perception of yourself, because you're your worst critic at the end of the day. So do things that also get you out of your own skin and out of your own head, whether it's running a workshop, whether it's applying for an award, whether it's contributing your opinion to an article that's being written, whether it's mentoring that new hire at your company, you know, whether it's representing your company at some massive awards evening or conference or whatever. Just go out and do those things because they will do great things for your career and how people perceive you, but also help you get out of that shell. And amazing things happen when you get out of your own shell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a marketer by any stretch of the imagination, but what I'm learning here, and I mean this in the most positive way, that it's so important how you manage others' perception of you, right? Like you're doing the work
Absolutely.
you're going to do anyway, but
Mhm.
are you managing perception or are you letting others sort of make a default perception of you based on who knows what, right? It could be, oh, you're a woman,
Absolutely.
so I don't believe you can do this, or you're an
Mhm.
immigrant, or you have an accent, or you don't have this degree, or you didn't go to the school that I went to. And
Uh-huh.
are you managing it or are you letting other people just decide for themselves without any other input, like who you are and what you're capable of?
Absolutely. And then at the end of the day, again, that's, I think, what we were taught to do. You just had to grow up to be this, what's the best word to describe this? This compliant individual that just
Hmm.
goes with the flow and accepts the system, whatever system you're in. I mean, we're in multiple systems all at once. If you look at the logistics of how the world runs, but we were just taught to accept things as they are instead of taking our own authority and our own autonomy and using that to help yourself get further in life. And yes, engineering your perception is something that you've got to do. And it doesn't mean that you have to, create this fake profile of who you are or how accomplished you are, which, we see time and time over, the amount of people that end up on the Forbes 30 under 30, and then you find out 10 years later that they've actually scammed everybody, that's bad engineering on their part. But it doesn't mean that engineering is something that is inherently negative, because you can absolutely be your authentic self and still engineer people's perceptions of who you are as a person. And most of the time, that comes from simply sharing what goes on inside your life and your mind to a degree that you're comfortable with. You don't have to share that your parents weren't great and you've got a lot of trauma and you had to go to therapy for 12 years. You don't have to share those things. Just simple things that people resonate with at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, most of the content of people who are popular on social media or have followers or have the brand deals, right, or have these high-flying jobs, at the end of the day, they've convinced someone, or not convinced, but made someone realize that they are quite similar, actually, and they can see a piece of themselves in that person, whether it's their experience, whether it's their opinion, whether it's their values, or whether it's just same style, or how you do things. All of that factors into how people see you, and thus how much authority you're perceived to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that's interesting to me about what you're saying is this mentality, and I don't know that my parents actually ever said this, but this mentality of, just work hard and keep your head down sort of thing. Like you're
Yep,
sort of expressing that. And, in a way, if I stop and reflect about it, it kind of made sense from our parents' perspective,
it did.
being immigrants. It made sense, not speaking perfect English. It made sense them not, having worked in a corporate environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we try to do for our son, because he has the benefit of my experience and my wife's experience working in large organizations, is to share with him advice like the advice that you're giving, that it's more than just hard work. There's additional things you're going to have to do to be recognized for all the things that you are going to do because you are smart and hardworking.
Absolutely. I mean, hard work means a lot, especially nowadays with AI. No part of my message do I want people to go, oh, I no longer have to work hard. I
Right.
can just focus on building how people see me. Because a house of cards is going to fall down because it's made out of cards, right? And then in this era of AI being so easily available and people just parroting each other, it's easier than it was, let's say, 10 years ago to not do hard work and then expect the world to fall in your place. And that's something I'm seeing in several young people, not all young people, but I think as a generation, they have this expectation that life should just be handed to them
Mm-hmm.
without hard work, and they think that can be replaced. So the people that do shine, and whether that's because they come through our door and they end up doing work experience, or I see them online, the ones that stand out are the ones that are working hard, they apply themselves, and most importantly, they do what they say they will do by the date that they say they will do it. And that's, I think, whatever stage of your career you're at, I think that's one undertapped skill that people don't leverage. Because at the end of the day, people remember. They remember whether, when you said, oh, I'm going to email that to you on Thursday, and then Thursday afternoon comes and they're like, where's this email? I'm too tired to follow up on that right now, but they will remember. So, over time, that trust is going to erode. So I think the easiest way to get your foot through the door is still hard work and sticking to your own word. And then once you have that all figured out, and it comes with a lot of learning about who you are and how you work and what keeps you going, what motivates you, what demotivates you, how your calendar needs to look like for it to work for you, right? But once those things are in place, that's when you then add on the authority building stuff, the proximity and the visibility bits, not before. So yeah, just wanted to get that out there. So people still do work hard and apply themselves.
Yeah, I love that you've pulled out that trust and credibility component, which I 100% agree with. I want to make sure we address something in your illusion, which I really love. That I don't think we've touched on yet. And you talked about working for free, right? And I felt this myself when I first started out with my side hustle. Oh, why would anyone pay for me? Or I need to give people stuff free before they'll pay me, and that sort of mentality. And it really speaks to how you value yourself and
Oh
your
yeah,
own
absolutely.
services. And would love to hear a little bit about how, your journey and how that's evolved to the point where, you do understand much more that there is a very strong market for what you can deliver.
Yes. Okay. So when I graduated, my self-worth was so low because I was so different to my peers in many ways, right? They had a mum who's a banker, a dad who runs a company, someone who's in top-notch corporate career and whatnot. So me having parents that are just, work in a factory for minimum wage, it felt like I was not adequate enough to go and do the jobs that they're also fighting for. Because at the end of the day, if I get through the door with them, they're going to be chosen because they have some secret sauce that I don't have, right? So the only way to get past that was to, okay, if I just prove myself to somebody for free and live off pot noodles, instant noodles, ramen, for a while, that's going to pay off. So I did, after deciding not to go to law school and then, qualify as a solicitor, I did work for free for quite a while. And it seems absurd now that someone would take a young female who is literally just in debt, and will take someone who's a law graduate with very good grades, mind you, and then just allow them to work for free. Because if
Mhm.
someone came through my door and was like, hey, I can do work, like, I'd be like, why? Why? Have some self-worth about what it is you're delivering and how much value that brings to me. You can't be doing work for free unless it's work experience, because you really do not know anything and you want to learn more about this thing that we're doing, because then that's a fair trade.
Mhm.
So I did that, and then I started freelancing, and then the jobs fell into my palm. Well, not fell. I kind of found the opportunity and fought for those opportunities, and then worked for pretty much close to minimum wage. And when our son was born, and I was an army spouse at the time as well, because he was in the army,
Mhm.
I was there with this brand new baby in the middle of nowhere with no support network, on my own, working my socks off, trying to build this company. COVID came as well, like 2 months, later, COVID was here. And I was like, surely that's not all life has to offer me. Like this can't be it. I know I've applied myself. So is this it? And I've refused to just accept that that's all there is to life. So then I started essentially reading other inspirational women that knew about money, and then just learning that money's not a bad thing. And if you ask for money and you earn more than my parents earned, which is, close to minimum wage, anything above that felt like it's a big success.
Mhm.
Um, I started to go, well, actually, that's not true, because money doesn't have barriers. It's not reserved for a specific kind of person. It literally comes to those who want it, in a way,
Mhm.
the most
Right.
simplistic way. That's what happens. So then I was like, okay, let's go on this bad boss babe journey, and then just raise all my prices and do this work and say no more and all of that stuff. And then it worked. So I just kept on doing that. And then up until this day, I still go, okay, what is it that I give people do I really have to stick to the average, or do I know that the way I do things and how I apply myself and how much of a hard worker I am and how much of myself I pour into these people that I work with, is that worth more than just what the market is accepting? And again, the answer is no. The people that want to work with me will pay me what I ask them. I don't have to force their hand or discredit myself with discount for them to work with me. Because if I have to do that, they're not the people that I want to work with. And at the end of the day, it will come and bite not only me, but also them on the backside, because I will be stressed about how am I going to pay my rent this month? How am I going to pay for the car? How am I going to pay for after school clubs for my child, right? How am I going to put food on the table? All of that stuff then accumulates in the back of your brain and takes the mind space that you could be using to produce even better work. And the moment you kind of realize that, and realize that money equals energy as well, it's a lot easier to just charge what you think you're worth than just follow rules, conventional rules.
What I love about what you're sharing, Kinga, and your life story and experience is it really pulls out how much of our results are, I don't want to say dictated because I don't believe in magical thinking, but are
Yes.
influenced by our mindset,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you can mindset yourself into just mediocrity, into failure, into criminality, right? Or like on the bad end of that, or you can mindset yourself into sort of really elevating, into growing, into improving, into things that you didn't really believe were possible until you started to believe. And then, as you showed in your experience, these things that perhaps when you started out this journey, you never would have thought. If you could time travel and go back and talk to yourself and say, Kinga, this is what's you would have been like, yeah, right. You would have just
Right.
like accused yourself of being a liar.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even now when I stuck on this, like just stop and look at some of the clients we've worked with, and I've engineered and written posts for some really big multinational, multi-country company bosses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at that and I go, how am I, this tiny immigrant woman from middle of nowhere that had to leave her own country or be
Yeah.
forced to leave her own country because of poverty,
Yeah.
how am I beside this person who is now listening to me and taking advice from me and following my lead?
Mm-hmm.
And how are we here? It still happens. I still don't believe where I am from time to time, but it just goes to show you that just because you don't believe doesn't mean it's not possible. Um, and you just have to roll with the punches and go after what you want. That's it.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I would love for you to share a little bit. I heard a little insider information that you were working on a book, and I would love to hear what that's about, whether it's related to your business or maybe you're doing something that's adjacent. Would love to hear a little bit more about your book because I love writing and books as well. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I am working on a co-authored book which will be called It's Not About You.
Mhm.
And the book will tackle all of the things that we think we need to do or how we do things within marketing and sales, and then flipping them on their head. So the general idea is that when you go out to your market, it really isn't about you. You have to be able to step back and put yourself in the shoes and the experience and the journey of the somebody you want to work with or influence, right?
Mhm.
So we're essentially writing a almost step-by-step manual. It obviously starts with mindset, then goes into the strategies and why things work or have to be the way they are because of neuroscience and psychology, and then how to implement those things bit by bit in your own company. So it's really written for founder-led companies that have or founder-led company that have reached a certain point and now they're a little bit too more in their own company to go that extra step. So we're essentially helping them to step outside and then have this new outlook on how they're doing the things that they're doing within the marketing and sales departments. So that's book number one. And then there's also another one which I'm writing with another two lovely ladies. And it's essentially a manual for parents so they can help their child write a book and get that published. So,
Awesome.
whether they're 6 or 12, it's a step-by-step guide to get their child to produce a book of their own, get it to market, obviously grow a bigger bond and communicate better as a result, because it is very also quite research led as well. And then, yeah, influence the space in a way that I'm in. Because at the end of the day, I have all of this power that I didn't know I have, and I want to use it for good. So those two initiatives do that, or attempt
So,
to.
so inspiring, and I hope you'll consider coming back when your books are published. Would love to hear
Oh, yeah,
a little
absolutely.
bit more about them. Also, I know giving back is important to you, mentoring perhaps folks who haven't had all the advantages or maybe had similar struggles to you. Could you talk a little bit about your work there? I find that really fascinating.
Oh, thank you. So I suppose a few years ago, as I was, going on this journey and sharing snippets here or there, like a small community of people, usually young women who are also from a disadvantaged background, first to go to university in their own family, have them work, their family works in regular jobs, not an office job, not within the marketing field. And again, I've just noticed that I have all of this power, right, to do good as I go on this journey. And yes, I haven't made it to the top of the success. I'm not going to name names. Or think of someone famous. But because of where I am, it also means that maybe I'm a more closer to where they are, so I'm more approachable and less scary as someone who they can reach out for support. So I've started reaching out to a few universities around me and going, hey, if you need someone to come in and talk about visibility or how to get into marketing or just personal growth, I'm here. And they've started to just invite me into their spaces. And then naturally there'll be, 10 or 15 young women just there listening to what I've got to say. So me being me, I've naturally started to extend that to, hey, if you ever need a conversation or some career mentoring, my DMs and my emails are always open. And people take that opportunity from time to time and come to me for support. And again, it's the basic things that we cover, what matters to employers, how to present yourself, what should go on your profile, lots and lots about just self-belief and knowing that even if they don't see themselves in the market and what's trendy, doesn't mean that they don't belong. So I do a lot around that and just support young women, and hopefully with the book about writing books with kids, that can turn in a few years into an entrepreneurial side venture. So going into schools and shaping entrepreneurs out of those who, maybe don't see themselves and fit into a career that's being offered by their career office. Rather, they are a little bit entrepreneurial and have that flair and the right skill sets to make it as an entrepreneur. Because I think if someone stopped me back when I was in school and said, hey, have you thought about maybe having your own business? I would have been, oh my gosh, yes, the pennies dropped, rather than trying to fit my entire personality and my skill set and my gifts into one career that's more linear. So essentially, I do what I do so that other people don't have to go on this long, tiring, exhausting journey that I had to go through because there wasn't someone there to tell me those things are possible or that it doesn't have to be this hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I've received a huge benefit from many mentors who are women, either at my company or other professionals, and I would hate to think that they didn't make it or didn't achieve what they wanted to because of not having that mindset or not having someone like you helping them earlier in their career. If you dig in, everyone always has those stories, right? Like someone
Absolutely.
helped me realize that I could do more. Had all these restrictions. And obviously, women in our workforce still have so much bias against them. So it's not an easy
Yeah.
walk by any stretch. But I think it's so wonderful that you're giving back and helping shape this sort of next generation of professionals, or however you want to call them, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think it's just our obligation, and we're very as society. I think it's very easy to just go, "Why are we not doing da 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 da? Da? Why is this the way this is?" and complain a lot without doing any of the action ourselves. And it's actually very easy to do something about the things you care about if you're just willing to spend some time and energy on those things. So I'm in the camp, if if you want to see change in the world, be the change in the world, and everything else will snowball after you. Because I'm sure the people that have been mentored by me or have been inspired by me, they half of them at least are going to venture forth and then pass on that knowledge, and it will snowball. And over time, everything will be slightly better
Yeah.
because we've made it better,
Yeah.
without just sitting on our bums and expecting change to happen without being part of it. So, yeah.
So, Kinga, I just really want to thank you for sharing your story, your insights, your experience, your energy. For folks who have heard this and perhaps would like to get in touch with you or just learn more about what you do or how you help others, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or learn more?
Probably LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Kinga Stabryla. Or email me simply at kinga@brandspire.co.uk. And yeah, I am here. And we do a lot of events, if someone's out there going, "Oh, I'm feeling inspired to post content," or whatever. We do a lot of free events to help people make that first step. So there's lots out there, and I'm always up for a conversation.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Kinga.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to share a quick announcement that I'm excited to share that Unlock Your Executive Presence, Feel Like a Boss is now available as an audiobook. It's my second audiobook, and I took a lot of care in producing and narrating it for those of you like myself who prefer to listen rather than read. And it really talks about how you can actually generate executive presence. Thanks for listening to No More Illusions. I'm Joe Kwan, the Connection Counselor. Take care, and remember, clarity reveals, illusion steals.